Welcome, welcome, everyone. How's it going? We're going to let everybody in here for the next couple of minutes. And while we do that, I'll take a quick minute to introduce myself and allow you guys to introduce yourselves as well. So if you want to, we're going to use the chat during today's session. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with that. And know some people are on video and others are not going to be able to be. And there's going to be a bunch of people catching us on the replay as well. So let's go ahead and drop in the comments where you're joining from. I always love seeing where people are coming into different communities from, different Zooms from, different places where they're joining us. So if you want to drop into the chat where you're joining us from, that would be fantastic. We've got Debbie joining us from Sandpoint, Idaho. We've got a couple of other people coming in as well. Awesome. Well, I am Meredith Banka, and I am joining you from Washington State, actually Eastern Washington. And today we're going to be walking through the $1 Million Messaging Plan. I have been in marketing and messaging for more than 25 years now, which I find unbelievable because it seems like it's something that I've always done. But at the same time, I feel like it's something that's fresh and new all of the time. And what we're going to be sharing with you is really the basis of what I believe great marketing is. Awesome. We've got Pam here from Georgia. We've got a couple of other people that are jumping in as well. So I'm going to let them in. So I have come to believe that really the backbone of great marketing truly is your story. And we're in a really unique time right now where consumers are getting a little bit tired of some of the messaging that they've been receiving for years and years and years. And that messaging is getting tired simply because consumers are just not falling for the BS anymore. I mean, let's just be honest, right? They're coming to us and they're saying, show me the truth, tell me the truth. And they're also really, really, really looking for relationship. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about as everybody gets ready to join us here today. So I do want to have a couple of ground rules for today. Number one, this is a live session. We are recording this session. The recording will be provided to everyone who registered and wasn't necessarily able to jump on at this time. So I do ask that you keep that in mind. And then the other thing I want to make sure that you know is that this is a working session. We're going to spend a little bit of time actually crafting and working on your story. And then there's going to be an opportunity for you to drop some comments into the chat. And I love having a group on Zoom. It's one of the benefits that I think we've all gotten from COVID is that we've gotten used to this environment and used to using Zoom. But I will say I so wish that we could all be in person together. And we'll try to treat this as much as like an in-person event as we possibly can. So like I was saying, you might want to have a pen and paper handy. You might want to have a few things that are out and ready and available for you. And as we go through the session today and you're working on things again, don't hesitate to use reactions. Don't hesitate to drop your comments into the chat. From there, what we're going to do is actually walk you through a tool that I have created that I'm super excited about. And it's called True Story AI, and I'm going to get to that with you all here in a little bit. But first, I want to dive into our lesson. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And we are going to dive into the messaging component of what I want to share with all of you today. So let me pull that up. Here we go. Okay, can you guys see that all right? I always waver when I get ready to switch things over in the view to make sure you can see it all. So if you can see my screen right now, go ahead and give me a thumbs up or give me, a heart emoji or whatever it is in the reactions. Okay, awesome. So like I was saying, I have been involved in marketing and messaging for more than 25 years, for about 15 years on the corporate side, and then about 10 years or so from home working for myself, running my own agency. And I've always had a real penchant and a real passion for people that are running their own business. I started my first business when I was 15 years old because I wanted to buy a car, and my parents told me, well, you know what, you need to go figure that out. And I said, okay, challenge accepted. I'll go figure it out. So I started my own business and I was able to earn enough money in about 9 months to buy a car. It was a beautiful bright red 1984 Toyota Corolla. It had those lights that like popped up out of the hood. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was a stick shift. I didn't even know how to drive it. Our neighbor had to drive it home from the dealership because I did not know how to drive a stick. But of course, I quickly learned how to do that, and it was my pride and joy. But what that really taught me is that entrepreneurship can equal freedom, and it can equal creating the kind of life that you want to create. And so it was a few years later after I graduated from university that I created my second business. And I always had something on the side while I was working in corporate. Later, after our children were born, both my husband and I stepped away from the corporate life and into entrepreneurship. And throughout all of that, as I started working with and coaching entrepreneurs, what really became fascinating to me is everyone, I just told you my story very, very quickly, right? But everyone that has a business that has started something, whether you're just starting out looking forward to making your first $10,000, whether you've been in it for a while and you've reached six figures, or whether you've been in it long enough to reach seven or eight figures, everyone's got this core story that they want to share and that they want to tell. And it's really the thing that sets you apart. It is the core of the message that you can put out. And the reason that that's so exciting to me right now is that that's what consumers are looking for. So I've been doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of tapping in to what is going on in the market right now and what the predictions are around marketing and messaging in 2026. And here's what I will tell you. There are a couple really interesting things happening. One, the concept of micro communities. So I would just go ahead and call this a micro community, right? We're in a little micro community for the next hour here together. And you came here live because you were looking for something. You were looking for clarity, you were looking for answers, guidance, expertise. But this little micro community is going to get to do some cool work together. And that's going to create a sense of connectedness and a sense of relationship. And that's really cool. And people are looking for that. Well, to me, that's based in story. When we come together in community, that's where we share our stories and we let people know what we're doing. But if people are looking for micro community, it also means that as a small business owner, you are in a winning position because all of the big competitors out there are not in a position to really develop micro communities effectively, right? Do you think Costco is going to create a micro community anytime soon? I don't think so, right? They just want you to go there, buy the thing, and leave, hopefully as fast as possible so somebody else can take your parking spot, right? So you're very uniquely positioned right now to tell your story, to leverage your story, and to share it with people in a way that creates community and creates relationship. The other core tenet that I've used and learned over the years is that you're most apt to help the person that you're just a few paces ahead of. So if you think about your trajectory and you think about your experience in business and you think about what you're here to create, you are just a few steps ahead of the person who's looking to you as that leader and as that example. And when you stand in power in your story, you create automatic authenticity, but also automatic authority. And people are looking for a leader. They are looking for someone to help them go from the state that they're in today to the state that they would like to be in. And if you're able to paint that picture using your own experience, your own transformations, and even the transformations of the people that you have worked with and their stories, then again, you're in that winning position because that's what people are seeking and that's what they're looking for. So the third thing that's happening in the marketplace right now is that people are a good friend of mine that I work with quite often. Her name is Jen. She is using a term that was released probably about 2 to 3 years ago in an article, I think either in the New York Times or The Economist, and it was the concept of a trust recession. I don't know, maybe you've heard that term. If you want to give me a thumbs up or raise your hand if you have. A trust recession is what we're in right now. So people are still spending money. We're still seeing commerce happen, but what is happening is people are taking a longer time to make a decision, and they want exposure and they want to see the work happening before they're willing to put the money in. So what that means for you as a marketer is that you have the opportunity to really, again, pace them along with your story to show them and expose them to the work that you do. So it's no wonder that workshops like this one, that storytelling, that reels, that lives, that video are becoming more and more and more highly converting because those are fantastic tools for us to be able to actually allow somebody to have exposure to the work that we do. So, as we're thinking about your story and as we're thinking about the pieces of the messaging that we're going to work through today, I really want you to approach it from a mindset of a high level overview, right? We're only going to be able to accomplish so much in our time together today, and you will walk away with a piece of your story crafted, absolutely, and some really cool through lines and connected lines between your experiences and what you offer your clients or potential clients. But I also want you to walk away from today really thinking about these three tenets or kind of trends that I've shared with you for 2026 and what they mean for your business and how you're going to show up with those. I don't think that there's ever been a better time to be an entrepreneur, and I don't think that there's ever been a better time to be building a business, especially using digital assets to do it. So just stepping into that idea and that excitement, not approaching it from a place of scarcity or somebody else is doing it better than you. Nobody can tell your story other than you. And your unique story is so attractive to people that are looking to get where you've already gotten. So I just want you to remember that today as we go through. If you've got questions as we get into this, again, please drop them into the chat. I'm actually going to make sure that I've got that pulled up right now because sometimes things kind of go by the wayside when I've got multiple windows going on. Cool. So if we don't have any questions right now in the chat, and it doesn't look like we do, then I'm going to introduce you to what I call the story flow method. And this story flow method, again, is really based on the experiences that I had in the corporate side and then I brought over into the entrepreneurial space. And when I worked in corporate, I actually sold travel. I worked for an international educational travel company, publicly traded, quite successful company. And I'll tell you what, there's not any better story to tell out there than the story of travel. I mean, travel is so aspirational. People love it. The images, the video, everything is so beautiful. People just want to get out and see this gorgeous, gorgeous planet that we live on. And so I brought what we learned from storytelling there into the entrepreneurial space. And I developed this method, and it's really a three-part method that's pretty simple, but so effective, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. That's the other thing I want you to remember. It doesn't have to be hard. This is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be having a good time as we do this. So the first thing that we're going to talk about with our story flow method is your defining moments. As you look back over your trajectory, some of us that are on this call, maybe we've got 2 decades under our belt, maybe we've got 3 decades under our belt, some of us 4, 5, or even 6 decades under our belt. That's all just experiences and defining moments. And each of those defining moments that are unique to us are being experienced similarly by our ideal clients and our ready buyers. So, really knowing what those aha moments were, not just the ones where you had the breakthroughs, but maybe also the ones where you had the breakdowns. Those are the stories that ultimately tell your truth. And that is something that we want to make sure we have. And we're going to document those here in a second. The second thing that goes into the story flow method is your ideal client's transformation. So, where is your client today? And where do they want to be? And how do you represent that future ideal state? And then the third component that we bring into the story flow method is your aligned offer. So your offer that is aligned with your truth, with your business, with your expertise, with whatever it is you do. And I'd love for everybody to drop into the chat here. And Melinda, I see your question. I'll get there in just a second. I'd love everybody to drop into the chat. So what do you do anyway? Tell us so that as we go through this, we have an idea of how we can interact and how we can help one another. So if you want to just go to the chat and drop in what it is that you do, that would be awesome. So Raven said, wow, I have a lot of defining moments under my belt. Yeah, that's awesome, right? That's fantastic. And let's not forget that we can also think of this story flow method in relationship to our clients' transformations too. Okay, so this applies not only to you, but also to your clients. So Melinda asked, a micro community, should it be paid or free? And how would it look if it started free and then later became paid? Okay, great question. So a micro community can be so many different things. And I think that that depends, honestly, on your overarching through line. It's hard to answer that question in a vacuum without seeing the whole picture of everything that you have. So if you wanted to create a free upfront community, that would be earlier in the process of your overarching through line. And does everybody know what I mean when I say through line? Like I'm talking about taking a stranger on the internet and bringing them all the way through to being a client or customer with you, and each of the unique steps that you take with them to move them from a stranger to a loyal client. That's your through line. And a micro community can be placed in multiple places there. You can have a micro community up front for people to get to know you and be exposed to you that pulls you through. You can have a micro community that is a paid community that's maybe a little bit of a lower ticket. And to me, low ticket is anything south of about $250. So you can have a micro community there. You can also have a micro community embedded inside of your higher ticket offers. For example, I'm running a mastermind right now, and we have a micro community for that mastermind that's a portal that people can jump into and be a part of. So it can fit anywhere. The bigger question to answer is, where does that micro community fit in context to everything else I'm doing? Okay. And if it is a paid community and if it is a paid membership and it's sitting in that middle tier, one thing that I will tell you is that in order for that to be successful, you need to either be one of two things. You either need to be patient if you don't have a very large audience and you want the community to grow over time, or you need to have enough volume of an audience to fill that community pretty quickly to allow for the engagement and the value to be experienced there. So, not that one is right or wrong, but just managing expectation around where you are in process if you're thinking about a kind of a mid-level paid offer. Okay, so we've got a visual artist here. We have a chief igniter. I love that. We have somebody who evolves high achieving women. Let's see. We have somebody that makes art. That's awesome. I will tell you my formal degree is actually in art, professional photographer. So we've got a lot of people that are kind of in the coaching and the artistic space, which is fantastic. Okay, so if these are the three sections, quilting, seriously, I could tell a story about a quilt. And quilting with my 98-year-old grandmother back a few years ago. That was pretty cool. So that's awesome, Bonnie. So here's what I want you to do. Here's our first part of our session that's a little bit of a working session. I want you to think about two or three significant, pivotal life or business moments that have changed how you show up for other people, that have changed the way that you show up in your business. The moment where you decided, you know what, I had this experience and I'm going to turn it into a business. The moment where you decided, you know what, I really love quilting, but now I want to make money doing it. What was that like? So just take a few minutes and write these down. And while you do that, I'll take a sip of water, and then I will tell you another way to approach this that you can do maybe after our time together today. That takes a little bit more time, but I'll set it up for you because you can go and do it independently. I'm going to drink out of the side of my cup, even though I have a straw, and I almost just totally poked myself in the eye with the straw. Okay. So another way to think about this as you guys are writing is um, to break down those decades of your life. So to think about what happened in your life in that kind of, early childhood to, preteen years that were some marked experiences that are somehow related to the work that you do today. I'll give you an example. Um, may not be shocking to those of you who know me, but for those of you who don't, I used to get in trouble in school for talking too much. I know it's a shocker. My fourth grade teacher, Mr. Iacano, busted me repeatedly for talking. And what he didn't know is that there was a kid that sat next to me in class. Mr. Iacano's class was a third, fourth grade combo. I was a fourth grader. This kid that sat next to me, his name was Michael Kincaid. He was a third grader. Michael struggled in school, so I would always finish my work quickly, and then I was always talking because I was always helping Michael. But Mr. Iacano thought that I was just talking for talking's sake. Yeah, that wasn't the deal. I was actually talking to help this kid, but he always busted me for talking, and it made me mad, and it pissed me off because I was just trying to help somebody by sharing what I knew. Okay, think about that. I was trying to help somebody by sharing what I knew. All right, later, junior high, high school, I was in theater, performer, dancer, all that kind of stuff. How does that relate? In my 20s, I got a degree in art and a degree in business because I have a unique ability to create a bridge between somebody's idea creatively and the reality of bringing it to fruition in business. That's like, I would call it one of my superpowers. Okay, so you can start to stack. Do you see if you just go back and you look at your life experiences and you allow yourself the time to think about, yeah, you know what, when I did that or when I had that, it was actually like my true identity being recognized even at that time. And now throughout my life experience, it's all come to fruition for me to be able to do what I'm doing today. Those are the meaty, beefy, deep, rich, super fun, exciting stories that you can tell in order to attract people and bring them into your world. Does that make sense to everybody, that exercise, to go through that and to just journal about it, to think about it a little bit? Okay, so who's got their story pillars done? If you've got them done, drop them into the chat. If you've got one here that you want to share, go ahead and drop it into the chat and we'll take a look at them. Oh my gosh, Bonnie, this is so cool that you started applying your engineering background to the quilting process. That is so cool. That is so cool. I love that. So if you want to drop that in, if you've got them done, please do. If you don't have them done and you're still working on it, we are going to keep moving forward, but that's why we provide you with the replay later in case you want to rewatch it. So I want you to ask yourself this question about the story pillars that you just wrote down. Ask yourself, what did I learn here that my client needs to know? So in that moment of that story, of that experience, what was the thing that you learned? And is that something that's critical for your client to know in their own transformation? So if I even go back to Mr. Iacano, my fourth grade teacher, what did I learn in that moment? What I learned is that sharing stories and sharing in general can help people. That's what I learned. And I mean, that's embedded in the values of who I am as a person today. So what did you learn in those stories that your client needs to know? Well, why does my client need to know that? Honestly, I think my clients need to know that. I think all of you guys need to know that because so many entrepreneurs don't think their story matters. They don't think it's important. They don't think anybody's going to care because we've been trained and programmed to just try to sell and get people to buy our thing, right? But we've moved from a transactional economy of the industrial revolution of the 90s, through the industrial revolution into the 80s, the 90s, even the early 2000s, where we were still mired in transaction. And we are now in a relationship economy. Brands and companies that can build relationship are the ones that are winning, big and small, right? Big and small. So, second question is, what next best step do I want the person hearing this story to take? So as we're telling a story, I also see this all the time, and this is going to matter to you guys when we get into, kind of the action taking part of this session. I see another thing happening in the space where entrepreneurs tell their story. They tell the story and they stop. They tell the story and it just kind of like the volume goes down at the end of the post or the end of the email or the end of the live or whatever it is. What's the next best step that I want the person hearing this story to take? Right? That's going to be a call to action. And how do you relate that call to action back to the transformation that you're offering to somebody? And most importantly, to the key offer that you're putting out there to people. So while you guys are working on that, I'm going to check the chat here. Ah, that's so cool. Bonnie is just sharing a little bit more about how she uses engineering and quilting because um, how things match up and how it's kind of systematic. Um, let's see, Debbie said she started a pilot program in Missouri in a juvenile detention center and had an impactful moment about wanting to make a difference in people's lives. Okay, that's massive. Um, then she went on to sell yellow pages, but she wasn't selling yellow pages. She was selling hopes, wishes, and dreams because what she was doing was helping businesses promote themselves. Am I picking up on that thread correctly? She was helping businesses promote themselves, and that's really grounded in their hopes, wishes, and dreams. And that's what she does now. And now stepping into doing her work full time, even though she was scared. That's awesome. I love that too. So you've got your story pillars documented. You've asked yourself question number one, which was, let's see if we can go back. What did I learn here that my client needs to know? And then what next best step do I want the person hearing this story to take? So we're going to put it all together. And this is the formula, right? Simple formulas, I will say, are my absolute favorite because I know as I'm spending time with all of you today, and again, this is short time, right? This is not a ton of time we're spending together today. I need to provide you with a framework that's memorable and one that you can use again and again and again. And at this point, I want to say, if you're telling your story right and you're telling your story well, you're going to get tired of your story. I use this analogy all the time. Um, who here is like a Beach Boys fan? Any Beach Boys fan? My favorite album from the Beach Boys is Pet Sounds. I love that album. It's one of my driving albums. I put it on whenever I'm going on a road trip. So you guys know the Beach Boys. Let's think of a Beach Boys song that's the one that the words are like Bermuda, Bahama, Come On Pretty Mama, whichever one that is, Key Largo, Montego, Come On, Why Don't We Go? Okay. Do you think, how many times do you think they sang that song? How many times do you think Frank Sinatra sang New York, New York? How many times do you think, Whitney Houston sang the song from The Bodyguard? How many times do you think Mariah Carey has sang that Christmas song that maybe you're kind of tired of hearing right about now, right? Like these artists have sung these songs so many times, but why do they keep singing the song? Because there is someone that's hearing it for the first time. I don't care how many times they've sung it, there's somebody hearing it for the first time. It's also become the favorite of other people. There are super fans, love that story. And every time they hear it, what happens? They get something a little different from it. So these core stories that you're developing and that you're telling, you're going to kind of get tired of telling them and you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, like I want something new." That's why we're going to create a story bank and I'll share that with you here in a little bit. But some of these core stories, as you're out there in the digital space, new people are coming to you all the time. You're getting new friends, you're getting new followers, you're meeting new people on and offline. They have not heard your story. So you need to repeat these core stories again and again with frequency. Doesn't mean you can't kind of change them a little bit, provide a different picture, a different take on the story, but you want to repeat them again and again because it's how people get to know you and it's how you become memorable. So I just wanted to throw that in. Yes, Raven said it's Surfing USA, Kokomo. Yeah, okay, Beach Boys songs. So what was this moment? That was the memory or the experience that you had. And then you had a realization of how it relates to the work that you do today. And then you're going to share a call to action. So I'm really loving Debbie's story about the detention center. So I'm going to pick on her a little bit today because she's actually someone I've known for quite some time, and I don't know that I have ever heard the juvenile detention center story, which is pretty miraculous because I thought I knew her story. So see, look, here's a piece of her story that I don't even know yet. So juvenile detention center, she had this impactful moment about wanting to make a difference in people's lives. So that's the moment. And that was the realization that you had. How do you think, and Debbie, you can come off of mute there if you want to. How do you think that that relates to the call to action? Debbie said she was a chief igniter. She works with people to help them live a lit up life. She helps them to really step into their full power and recognition of who they are and the work that they're meant to do here. So, how does that relate to the call to action that you might want to have when you're telling your story?
Yeah, so Meredith, just a quick piece of context. Thanks for asking. Is that the impactful moment was I had a kid that was in juvenile detention center that had never committed a crime. He was kicked out of all these halfway houses and he never put his name on his paper. And I asked him why, and he said, "Well, when you're told you're not worth anything, why bother?"
Mm.
So when I left, he wrote me a letter and signed his name at the end.
Oh,
And so that, like, you just don't know the impact that you have on people. And so in that moment, like I realized that I wanted to go back and do something to impact kids before they went to juvenile detention center, but then also knowing that there are so many people in our world, entrepreneurs left and right. I've struggled with this idea of worth. And so, why would someone want to come to me to have artwork done or photography done, or come to me to help put a business together or to move their business from 6K to seven figures, right? Like, or six figures to seven figures. So, it really put that realization in me that everybody has self-worth issues. It's different degrees. And so the call to action is that's really honestly what I do is I help people find their worth and then they give themselves a raise. They feel more confident about what they're doing, so they attract more clients and all of that. The things people want come because they've changed that internal piece of themselves.
so do you see the through line that Debbie can tell there, right? Like, so I was working in this juvenile detention center and I was doing that because I wanted to give back and because that's telling who she is and a little bit about her values. That's the moment where she was. There was a breakthrough and a realization there for her that people struggle with worthiness and that that's a true calling for her. She can use the example of this young man not writing his name on the paper and then signing the letter, and then she can pivot that into the work that she does now by saying, and now what I truly do is help people tap into and understand that they are worth all of the dreams and wishes that I can help them to fulfill, but that they maybe can't do it alone and that I can help them to do that. Okay, so that's how we can tell a story and bring it through. And then in that call to action, let's talk about the way that different stories can show up in all of the different kinds of content and stuff that we create. So, who here, and if you guys want to, I'm seeing that Sarah is like, hey, Debbie, I'd love to connect with you. Like, yeah, seek each other out, you know? Again, that's the value of coming together in an environment like this. But who here is using social media in some way in their business? Who's using social media in some way or would like to be, right? I don't care if you think you suck at it. I don't care if you think you're awesome at it, but you know, it is a part of our world today. And storytelling is a great methodology to use in social media because it allows you to stand out. Again, I don't know anybody else. Do you? Does anybody here know anybody else that volunteered at a juvenile detention center that led them to understand that people are missing the concept around worthiness, that then she just, you know, tapped into that for herself and now has decided to open a coaching and consulting business that helps people tap into that? That's such a unique piece of content. So Debbie could take that story and she could tell it in social media multiple ways. She could tell it on a live. She could tell it in a video. She could tell it in a static post. She could go deep into the concepts of worthiness and tell it on a carousel. She could tell it in a couple of story panels. She could tell it in a blog. She can tell it on a podcast. She could tell it in a LinkedIn article. She could put it into an email. So do you see how that one concept, well understood and rounded out across these three simple pillars of the moment, the realization, the call to action, could provide her literally with several weeks worth of content, right? Just by tapping into that concept and this theme of worthiness. And she might have another story. Maybe she has a story of a client who she's actually helped to make the transformation from feeling unworthy to feeling worthy. I'm sure she probably does because that's what she does. So if she opened with her own story and used an example from her experience of the young man that's attention grabbing, I mean, what my reaction was like, I want to hug that guy. I don't know where he is, but I want to give him a big hug and tell him it's all good. But now she's helping somebody else to do that. So now she can reflect the story on someone else. Okay. So let's see. Somebody here said, I'm in the starting stages of turning all my social media presence into a business. That's awesome. I have a fan base. That's also awesome. Translate it into business. Yeah, that's great. That's absolutely awesome. That's awesome. Cool. So good information happening in the chat. So let's take this next step and talk about what stops you from being able to tell the story. So now you've documented your pillars, you've got an idea of what the story means to you, you've got an idea of that next step that you want somebody to take when they hear the story, that you're not going to create content where the story just drops off and goes into the ether, right? We need to end with them, even if that call to action is like, if you agree, drop a me below. If you know have a similar story, say yes, or tell me your story below, or whatever it is. Or it could be, check the link in the comments, or check my, the link in my profile, or go here, or go there, or whatever. But don't just let it trail off purposelessly. Um, because when people hear your story, they're being prepared to take that next step with you. In my experience, what I have found is that entrepreneurs get stopped, like I said earlier, telling their story. And there's a few reasons that I feel like people are not doing this regularly. So if this sounds like you, I want you to drop a 1, a 2, or a 3 into the chat. You think that your story is not relevant or professional enough. It doesn't really matter. It's not really that interesting. Okay? Have you ever felt like that? Maybe number 2 is I don't know which story to tell when. I don't know which story to tell when. How do I know when I tell maybe what somebody calls an origin story versus what somebody calls a transformation story versus a testimonial versus a story from my past versus something that I thought or experienced today? I don't know when to tell it and how to tie it to my offer. And then the third is that we don't tell the story strategically. So here's a thing that I also want you to open your mind to. If this were super easy, okay, of being an entrepreneur and telling our story and using it to build an audience and doing all of these things were super easy, then it would already be done, right? There are learning curves here, and there are things that we need to accept and acknowledge and understand in order to become great storytellers. And these are three of those pillars, but specifically on this last one, you have to have a purpose for telling the story. Otherwise, you're just not any different than somebody's sharing a story for the purposes of sharing it. Let me give you an example of that. Let's say something really exciting happened in your business. Maybe you signed your first client. Maybe you crossed a revenue threshold. Maybe you hit a sales goal. Maybe you launched a new product, like something really big and exciting happened. And then let's think of a hypothetical person. We'll name them Haley. Haley is not an entrepreneur. Haley has a job. And Haley just got a killer promotion at her job. Haley goes on to Facebook or Instagram and she posts about her promotion. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, congratulations, Haley. That's awesome. So proud of you, girl. I knew you were going to get there. Not surprised at all. You're amazing. And you, as the entrepreneur, go on and you share similarly to Haley. And you just say, oh my gosh, I launched this new thing. And you stop there and you don't provide the next step. Do you see how that dead ends? That totally dead ends. You have to take it to the next step. And that next step is telling it strategically, which is telling it purposefully, tied to a call to action so that people will actually do the thing that you want them to do, which is to click the thing or send the DM or go to your website or whatever it is. And here's the thing, people get tens of thousands of messages every single day, and people like to be told what to do because it's easier. So if you tell me, like, if I want that thing, I go here, I click the thing, I get the thing, like, I'm going to do it. But if you just are like, kind of like soft about it, and you're hoping that they're going to intuit the next step that they need to take, it might happen. It might. Somebody might get your vibe and pick up on it and do the magic click through without being told what to do. But I'm going to argue that you need to be more directed. Okay? I'm going to argue you need to be more directed. Does everybody here know how to ride a bike? Okay? Does everybody here know how to ride a bike? Do you remember the first time you rode a bike? Did you kind of suck? The first time I taught my daughter to ride a bike, um, I accidentally gave her a little bit too big of a push and I didn't realize she didn't know how to stop and she totally ran in her bike into like the entire line of trash cans on our road that were there. And then she wouldn't ride her bike again, literally for the longest time. And I think about that. So when I think about this bike analogy, like you start riding your bike, you suck. Like you're not very good at it. But once you do it again and again and again, you get better and you get better and you get better and the skill develops. It's the same with telling your story. Okay. It's the same with telling your story. The problem is that we're impatient as entrepreneurs, aren't we? We want results quickly. We want to build our businesses. We want to make money. We want to have impact. We want to live this life that we have been dreaming of. Am I right or am I right? Like that's what we want to have happen. And so as we've gone through this last year with storytelling, I want to make sure as we're leaving this section and going into the next that you all have gotten your story pillar documented. You've written that down. You've gotten the formula of here's where my story is, here's the transformation or breakthrough that I had, and here's how I can try it to my CTA. Okay, because that's really the nugget that I want you to leave here with today that I don't see being taught very frequently. I hear people talking about telling the story, but not ever being strategic about closing it out. And that's the walk away that I want you to have today. But I also want to share something with you that I'm pretty excited about because I have been seeing a lot of things happen in the marketing space and in the online space in this last year. And I wanted to be able to do something about it. And I wanted to be able to help entrepreneurs to be able to tell their story faster, more effectively, more efficiently with conversion in mind. And how many of you are messing around with AI right now? How many of you are using AI in one way, shape, or form, or trying to in your business? Okay. I've been seeing that too, and I'm using it in my business as well. And what I'm seeing is that people are putting a lot of information into AI, and I'm seeing a lot of repetitiveness, and a lot of similarity between the outputs that are happening there. Do you guys agree? Like, are you seeing that? Everything is kind of starting to sound watered down and seem the same. And so I thought to myself, what can I do to help entrepreneurs be able to leverage the 25 years of knowledge and frameworks that I have that we use with our done for you clients? Because in my agency, we work with clients and we actually deliver their marketing for them. But I wanted to help other people that aren't not yet at the space where they're ready to outsource that. And so I came up with a solution and I'm going to share it with you today. But first, I want to talk with you about what I see as some of the downfalls of AI. So they don't connect the dots between your story and your strategy because AI isn't that smart, right? It's pedantic in a sense. It's very linear and it can't think strategically like that. It can't bring any emotion into the piece. It is garbage in, garbage out. You've got to know what to tell it and how to prompt it to get it to do what you want it to do in the way that you want it to do it. And you have to be able to do that serially in order to get good outputs. And it can't teach you how to be a better marketer. It can only provide you content, and it can kind of tell you what to do with that content, but it can't help you to become better at what you do. And unless you've gotten really good or built your own individual bot, it's not really probably sounding like you, right? You're going back again and again, and it's starting to sound more like you over time, but it still doesn't sound exactly like you. And it still doesn't give you the frameworks and the pieces that you need. So in that, I decided to develop a tool that's called True Story AI. And I'm going to share this tool with you guys today because I want you to be able to check it out and I want you to be able to see it. And it's actually a three-part system. So I'm going to show you the parts first of all. So the first part of this is, we're going to go in here, a portal. And inside this portal, there are lessons that actually teach you how to do some of the things that are paramount to being able to represent yourself well in the online space. How many of you have a brand guide where you have your entire brand, your mission, your vision, your values, your key marketing propositions, your core messages, all of that documented in a way that is translatable and that makes sense? Okay. Raven says, I do now, thanks to you. Well, I helped Raven build a brand guide. And inside of True Story AI, you get access to that brand guide template so that you can take all of your thinking and you can put it into a documented brand template that you can use again and again and again for many purposes. The other thing that's inside of here, and this view is kind of not making me very happy. The other thing that's inside of here is inside of True Story AI. Here we go. Let's see if I can get into this lesson, is an offer documentation process. So a place for you to document all of the different things that you are selling and to do it using the frameworks that I used in the last 25 years to develop product offers. And then the third thing that's in there is something that's called your story bank. And this is a guided, prompted system that you can use to actually record using Zoom all of the stories that you're now probably thinking of that are related to who you are and what you do. And we record all of those stories and they become the core documents and the core system that we use when we jump over here to True Story AI. Now you'll see that this is inside of ChatGPT. So this is a custom bot built inside of ChatGPT. And so when we go to this bot, it's going to ask us to start our true story. And we do that and it's going to ask us for a password. Because this is a password protected environment, I'm going to put in my password. Then it's going to ask me who I am. And my name is Meredith. And then it's going to say, hey, Meredith, can you upload your brand, your offers, and your story bank? So it's going to say, can you tell me about your business and tell me about you? So I'm going to go right here, this little plus button. I'm going to go right here into my documents. I put all of these documents in a folder that I can find easily. My recorded story bank, my brand guidelines, my offers, and actually also a framework that I created. And I'm going to let these upload here quickly. And then True Story AI is going to summarize those for me. And it's going to say, is this who you are and what you're all about? Did I get this right? Is this your brand summary? Is this your story summary? Is this a summary of what you're putting into the market right now? And I would read through that and then I would say yes or no and add more information. And then it's going to say, awesome, Meredith, what do you want to create today? So what we have trained this bot with is all of the frameworks and templates that we use for emails, for social media content, and for video content for all of our Done For You clients. Those templates and frameworks are behind this. And what makes it different than ChatGPT is that ChatGPT is going to the internet at large. It's just pulling information for information's sake. It's not going to any one expert. Remember my comment about garbage in, garbage out? It's not going to any one expert, any one system. All of the frameworks that we've created over the years are truly story-based, permission-based marketing. And that's the type of templates and structure that we've built into Story AI. True Story AI. So if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I want to tell my story more, but I don't know how to do it. That's what's preventing me. I don't know how to tie my story to my offer. This is your answer, right? So if I wanted to say, yeah, you know what, I want to create an email. So I want to create an email. So, okay, cool. What kind of email? It's going to ask me, do I want, these are all structures that are in here. Do I want a launch series? Do I want a final call to action series, an invite series, a newsletter, a waitlist series, a nurture series? Am I hosting a live event? What does that look like? And I'd say, let's just do a newsletter for today's sakes. I'll say newsletter for the holidays. And it's just going to continue to ask me questions about what is it that I'd like to have in here? What is the name of the offer? Are there any bonuses? What is your main call to action? What tone do I want to have? Is there a specific story from your story bank that you would like to use? So it's asking me all of these strategic questions that I can then answer. And based on that, it's going to build that email for me. Okay, it's going to help infuse it with what I am trying to accomplish based on that framework. It doesn't just stop True Story AI with the creation of emails and social content. We also have what we call our power prompts. And the power prompts are actually to help you develop a campaign flow. Because one of the other big problems that I'm seeing in the marketing space for entrepreneurs is they're like, oh yeah, I want to do that. Like I want to offer this retreat like in April. And I want to have like 10 women and I want them to come to the Bay Area and I want them to come to this cool Airbnb that I knew about and I want to do this like healing modalities for this weekend. And it's like they want to do this in April and it's already like March 1st. So they're already behind the gun, right? They're like, oh, dang, too late. Don't understand the go to market strategy. Don't know how much time I need in order to go from A to B to C to get this thing out the door. Well, what if you could use a power prompt? These are stored in the portal that I showed you. You literally, this is the AI prompt. So remember when I told you garbage in, garbage out? You have to know how to prompt AI to get it to do what you want. And you could either spend a whole bunch of time learning how to prompt it yourself, or you can use this tool that's already got the prompts in there and you copy and paste them and you put them in True Story and it does the work for you. So what this one is going to do is actually run a year-long orientation through line for my entire marketing plan for a year. Okay. So it asks these questions. So let's copy this and let's go over here and say that we're going to do this instead. It's like, oh, okay, so you want to start this. Cool. What's your first question? What's the through line for my year? So in one or two sentences, what I'm trying to do, I am trying to help entrepreneurs tell their story through more compelling and highly converting marketing so they can make a ton of money and have a great time doing it. And you don't even have to spell well, thank God. So we put this in here. It says, okay, what identity or emotional shift do I want my audience to have moving forward this year? When you guys sit down to like write a plan, are these the questions you're asking yourself? Probably not, right? No, it's not. You're not asking these marketing kinds of questions because why would you know how to do that? You're an expert at what you do. We let this tool be an expert at what it does. So what emotional shift do I want them to have? I want them to stop being afraid to share their experience and start telling their story. Okay. What are my top business priorities for the year? Let's just say $1 million in revenue, 250 members in True Story AI, and speaking on 6 stages. So this tool does make some assumptions that you know how to run your business and that you've already kind of outlined what you want to do. What revenue intentions? I'm going to say see above. I already told you how much money I want to make. Okay, what major life events, vacation, or capacity challenges do I need to factor in? Wow. Okay, I will be on vacation in August. I am speaking at a major event in April and going to Mexico with a client in Feb. Perfect. What anchor points already exist? What it means by anchor point is like what kind of workshop, what kind of things am I already offering? So I'm going to say I do monthly messaging workshops to introduce people to what we offer at True Story. Okay, so now it's going to summarize that for me and give me a month by month outline of what my themes are, what my focuses need to be, and the rhythm that I can take that's fully aligned with the way that I want to show up in my business. And this is based on the frameworks that we've created with clients. We go back to those power prompts and we go through each one of these. We can do that for monthly content themes. We can do it for quarterly offer ecosystems. We can even have this architect a campaign for us, telling us when to deliver the campaign and at what time, how many emails, and then create all of the campaign assets for us. So it is a robust tool that hits in all three of the major areas where I see people in the marketing space struggling the most, right? The other really cool thing about this is that I am not a huge fan of people trying to use tools without support and guidance because I think, left to our own devices, um, we can come up with a whole lot of things that may or may not necessarily be in alignment with the direction that we're trying to head, right? So there's no way you can be an expert in everything. When I talk with people that are coming to me and that I work with who are starting a business, one of the first things I always ask my clients about is like, okay, do you have insurance? And who's doing your taxes? Because we got to make sure we cover our bases, and protect our assets. And we got to make sure somebody's doing your taxes for you because I can guarantee you right now, unless you're an accountant, you probably don't know how to do that for yourself, right? Well, it's the same with marketing. Unless you've spent your career understanding how these things work, don't hold yourself to an expectation that you would know how, right? And then when you're getting ready to use a tool like this, all too often the tools are just thrown at you, but there's not support surrounding them. So inside of the system, again, just to remind you, we input our, top-notch brand documentation, offer documentation, and story documentation. AI to me is an 80-20 game. It's 20%, 10% on the front end, 10% on the back end, and the tool does the 80% of the heavy lifting in the middle, but you've got to put your inputs in properly. And that's the structure of the brand and the offer and the story that come through the portal. Then you put all that in, and then you're going to get some outputs out. Then you still have to put it to the litmus test of saying, you know what, that makes sense. It does sound like me. Or, oh, that's a word I would never use. Change that one, right? This is not a copy paste, right? If you want it to sound like you, we're going to deliver to you 80% of the heavy lifting, and then you get to live in that 20% of the space where you're the expert in who you are. It provides you with that entire content engine and the entire content planner, right? These are the major pieces that I see holding people back from telling their story. You know the stories. You just don't have a way to document them. You don't know how to serially and quickly create enough content without it just miring you down and not allowing you to get done the real work you want to do. And then you don't know how to plan for it. And right? So why not put all of that in one place together and give you the opportunity to do that? And I wrapped this all together and added in a couple of things for people and made it, I believe, extraordinarily affordable for entrepreneur to use. So right now, True Story AI actually launches today. You guys are the first people to hear about it through this workshop. I've had a few clients piloting it over the last few weeks, and they are loving it, what they're seeing and what they're getting out of it. But this is a founding opportunity for you to get in and be one of the first to use it. It's 77 bucks a month. Not only do you get the portal and all the tools that I've shown you today, but every single month we will have our community of True Story users get together for a monthly Q&A. And the Q&A is not limited to the tool. So if you want to have a CMO, in truth, I am a fractional CMO that has a great passion for entrepreneurs. And I have done a little bit of a lot over the last 25 years, right? You need help with the signature talk? I got you. You need help running TV ads? I've done it. Radio? Done it. Print publications? Done it. Direct mail? Done it. Marketing response? Done it. Online, offline, upline, downline? I have done it. And this membership gives you the opportunity to have access to me once a month to ask those questions. This is not going to be a community of 10,000 people where you come in and you don't get the attention you need. It's going to be a place where you can come and actually get the marketing guidance and advice that you want and have it backed by AI so that when you go away for the month, you can be fast and you can be efficient and you can get to the stuff that you really want to do, which is the quilting and the photography and the client work, right? That's really what you guys want to be doing. Each month, there'll also be updates of prompts and templates and lessons as the tool grows and builds and you begin to use it. And all of that's available to you in the portal. So if that's something that you think you might want to grab, this is the QR code. You can go out and get it, or you can go to truestorymarketing.com/AI, and you can be one of the first users to grab this. We're at our time for today, and I am going to go ahead and stop the recording. And then after that, if we have anybody that has any questions about what we've shared, I would be more than happy to answer them for you. So let me just stop the recording, and I will bring my screen back.